Hey everybody, welcome back to another Blind Tuesdays. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Excuse me if my throat's a little dry. Just just been one of those interesting days, we'll say. Um, yeah, I wish I brought a water bottle actually, but we're back with another Blind Tuesdays, and this week the category was comedy. Now, me and comedies have a very interesting relationship because typically I don't have a lot of comedies that I'm quite fond of. There are some here and there that I get a kick out of, but I'm not like laughing, hysterically. There's some craftsmanship that I could admire. There's some performances that I could admire, but typically I'm not that fond of comedies because most times it's slapstick and just the manner of how they're representing the humor. It just doesn't really speak intelligently, it doesn't have a mark in terms of its writing. It's just amounting to the physical nature most times. And I don't know, it just doesn't really appeal to me, that genre, too much. Um, but, you know, it's always nice to have a laugh every once in a while. But I was originally going to do The Other Guys as doing something a little bit more modern. So I actually think that film's, in some cases, genuinely funny. Um, but I decided to not do that film because I got lazy and didn't watch it. So I decided to revisit a series that I actually really love and um, I got hooked on because of watching the first feature film of this. I believe the first feature film from this series, which is Monty Python. We discussed Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and I'm not speaking in hyperbole when I say that that is probably my favorite comedy of all time. I absolutely love the craftsmanship. I love the writing. I love the cleverness. The fact of nothing having real sense to it is the entire point and the entire uh, reason behind everything existing, and the humor behind that and the delivery of its humor. It's very self-aware, but at the same time is so dead-faced and serious to some extent, to where it just births this immense laughter that I still get every single time I watch it. Um, it's just so well made and very, very just, I love the ending as well, like it being a literal cop out. It's very, very, very clever, very like very referential to the filmmaking as well. It's just really, really good. Um, so I figured to talk about the second entry. I believe the second entry, I could be wrong, of the film series of Monty Python, that being The Life of Brian, which was directed by Terry Jones this time, only Terry Jones, because the original film was directed by Terry Jones and Terry Gilliam. Um, so Terry Jones now just working on his own, directing this one, and uh, this being the strategical take on the Jesus story. So now they're dipping into religion. So we're trading in the medieval and King Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table type of setting. For now, the Christianity and Jesus, environment. And what you get from this time is a lot of the building of humor as the original film was, but I think what this film lacks a lot of is a lot of that self-awareness that the original film bared. Um, I mean, of course, it's self-aware. I mean, by the delivery of its jokes and to some extent its point of delivery, by the actors and stuff like that. It's obviously to some extent being self-aware, but it's not as self-aware as the original one was. And I feel as though that is an issue, and I feel as though that it ultimately takes away from the construction of its sketches. Because in the original film, when all those sketches played, there's just something quite organic in how it is all melded together. I think the editing is also just brilliant in that film, in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I love how it knows when to cut to certain things and let things linger for a certain amount of time. With The Life of Brian, it's much more just standard by how it's cut and by like it tries to replicate that feeling, but it just feels as though that feeling is not as apparent or really there at all. Um, and what you get from The Life of Brian is on one level something that is heavily at least for me, because I don't have as much of a perspective on religion. I mean, I do have some ideas and some understandings, but there's some concepts that I didn't get, some ideas that didn't completely resonate, and I don't know if those jokes landed as a result. But the ones that I do know of and the ones that I picked up on and understand, they're funny, but they're not that funny because of just again by how it's being constructed. Um, to some extent more of a um less to do with the lines and more so to do with the physical nature, what's happening on screen, more of a concern for the visual presentation than what the Holy Grail did, where it was a blend of both visual and dialogue, and the dialogue being in Holy Grail just being again just great. Just so many quotable lines, tis but a scratch, stuff like that. With The Life of Brian, I don't have much of a much things that dawn on me, with that specific film. I remember the ending of that film, which is the happy ending, which under the skies of religion, it's it's quite funny. Um, and I think that the other thing about the film, which I think is frank when you see what they're trying to do, is that there is a controversial nature to its comedy. I mean, not for me anyway, just because I my view on religion is, very, like, I'll put it this way. I think The Last Temptation of Christ, I think, is a really great depiction of Jesus himself. And I think that it's very, very well, uh, like, very authentic, kind of a, I forget what the word is for people who, I forget, but it's like, it very much fits my description of that sort of sphere, with this, um, as far as I remember, I don't remember there being like super offensive stuff. But I could see where people might take issue with it because I mean it's when you touch on religion or try to make a point that is not the majority when it comes to religion, people get upset. Um, like that's blasphemy, how dare you, Um, but Um, but it's not an issue of the film. I'm just saying that I could tell. I mean, I know that there probably is controversy was spewed from this film because of just the subjects that they're touching on. But I feel as though that they just didn't get to the place to where I am just completely like, as I said before about comedy, like I'm not big on comedies where they feel that they have to push the button or they feel that they have to poke the bear, like what I mean. They have to take it to a certain extent. I'm not a big fan of that. I think that it's just gross and honestly just very immature, because it's like, why do you feel the need to have to push the button? Why do you have to bring up stuff like that? It doesn't do that, but to some extent, by just how it's delivering its humor, perhaps something of a of a pointing of that direction may have helped it. I don't know. Because as it stands, it's just the classic example of it being a sequel. I think that's just the best way you can put it, is that it kind of fits the stereotype of what one expects from a sequel, which is a lesser version of the original. And that's, I guess, the best summary for The Life of Brian. It's just a lesser version of the Holy Grail. It's just lesser jokes, lesser overall just construction. Again, the editing is just kind of standard this time around. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some things that are funny. Like I like the um when we when Brian hooks up with that girl and you see the his mother, who's played by a man, uh comes into that room and the girl's naked and you see his face, how he's looking at her, it's not of disgust, it's actually that of intrigue, you know. That to me was very, very funny. And the again, the ending itself is also very funny because it's again trying to piggyback on what the original film did and overall just details. You know, we have to have a very clever way of ending things. We have to have this, we have to have that. It's just not as compelling or as strong as the original film was. And the original film is just it's a tall order to try to get to make a sequel to that. And they did fine. It's good. It's not a bad film. I it does sound like I'm being negative, but it's only by comparison. But as it stands, it's fine. I just think that it's not delivering as much on the jokes and delivering as much on construction of humor. Um, there's stuff there that's again that's funny. Like Biggest Dickus, I think is probably the most notable thing from that film, and that's funny. It actually is quite funny. Um, but it's stuff like that, you know. It's more to do with the visuals, more to do with just certain things. Whereas with the Holy Grail, it had to do with everything. It had to do with just the performances, the writing, the visuals, what we're seeing, the manner of it. Like there's just so many things that are building, like just crafting, like building this laughter, this endless laughter, you know. Whereas Life of Brian, it's just more tame, I guess, in terms of my just for my my viewing experience with that film. So you know, so so I like it, but I'm not as big of a fan of it compared to the Holy Grail, and I probably shouldn't be comparing it to the Holy Grail. But you know, I just can't help it because of just the bar that was set for the Holy Grail when it came for comedies for me. It's just I think just brilliant. So for this to be a lesser film, it's expected probably. I should have probably expected it because of it being a sequel, but it can be a little disappointing when you see what was in the Holy Grail to what is now with Life of Brian. So like I'll put it this way. Like I mean Monty Python is like in some respects like the British's like SNL to some extent, but in the Holy Grail I got a very unique delivery of humor. In the Life of Brian, they try to maintain that sort of manner, but it kind of devolves into parody. It feels that definition of parody is felt more in Life of Brian than that of the Holy Grail, where it's just something where you're just like, what is happening, why, and it's just that question, the question of why are things happening is the entire point of the film, and it's so brilliant. You know, it sounds ridiculous, but that is its point is to be ridiculous and spontaneous and just weird. And in that line of just randomness, there's a consistency going on. In the Life of Brian, they try to do those things again, but it's just not as strong. So 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 I like it. I do. I think it's fine. I think it's good, but yeah, it's tall order to try to try to follow up from the Holy Grail. It's a really really hard thing to do, and they definitely get tried, but it just doesn't stack up. So it's okay on its own, but in comparison of to Holy Grail, it definitely you know definitely shows its issues more than maybe what the Holy Grail has, which in my book I can't find any real issues. But in the Life of Brian, there's definitely a few that I can point to. So yeah, so those are my thoughts on Life of Brian. I like it. I like it. Again, there's some funny things in there. Biggest Dickus, the ending itself, you know, I I think that both endings are very clever. I'll give it that. I think both endings are extremely clever. Um, I just like that. Like I'll put it this way: Life of Brian is an ending. Holy Grail's ending is a surprise. When it happens, I mean, it's a cop out. So it's like I get it. It's meant to be that sort of manner. Like it's meant to be a surprise. But it's like when it happens, right? It just services the film more with the happy ending, it's just a funny element. I'll put it that way. So, like, I like that ending because of how it delivers that joke. But I like the ending of the Holy Grail because of how it services the entire film. So so those are my thoughts. Hopefully, I was clear on how I felt about it. But let me know your thoughts on Monty Python. I've seen some of the sketches. I'll be honest, they don't really stack up compared to the films. But I don't know. You guys let me know your thoughts on Monty Python, your guys' thoughts on the Holy Grail, your guys' thoughts on Life of Brian. Should I check out any of their other films? I know that there was more than just these two films. Were those films any good? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And this being Blind Tuesdays, obviously, I'm not at home, so I will be spinning the wheel on my own time. So whatever I land on will obviously be right here, and that will be for next week's Blind Tuesdays. So there you guys have it. So thank you guys for tuning in, and yeah, let me know your thoughts on all things Monty Python in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.